Hi everybody, this is Alchemist2 and I'm back again with another movie review. Recently I decided to see the film called The Fountain, which is a movie I wasn't really familiarized with. It came out in 2006 and it stars Hugh Jackman, and it's a rather esoteric film that's sci-fi in nature, and I would call it metaphysical. It spans quite a few millennia, and I really thought it was quite a beautiful film, and I just thought it was just stunning. And the imagination of the creators was to be praised, I feel. I think that this movie is just really touching, and it really moved me. And I just dream that I can have a love like that at some point in time in my life, because not having that kind of love right now in my current existence, and seeing other people that have a kind of relationship with a kindred soul, and actually a soulmate is even more transcendent, and that's what was depicted in this particular movie. They were matched souls even though they were different from each other. Um, it actually contains the mythology of the tree of life, which in Genesis, it actually has a verse from Genesis 3:24, which explains that the tree of life, after Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, once they were tricked by Satan to do so, um, God hid the tree in Eden from them with a flaming sword, actually a seraph, spinning a flaming sword in all directions so they couldn't get to it once they were evicted. Basically, out you go! No longer can you go back to Eden. You screwed it up. But yeah, that's, my humor is kind of wacky. Don't pay me any heed. Um, I just thought that this movie was absolutely um, sensational, and it was very moving, and the music was absolutely gorgeous. The camera angles were probably my favorite thing in this entire movie, other than the music. I don't know what equipment they used, but the lighting and the different angles that they used were so different from any other film I've seen, other than the Oceans trilogy. Just the Oceans 11, Oceans 12, and Oceans 13, which used a lot of what I call mood lighting. And the mood lighting used a lot of different shades of gold. And if you know anything about symbolism, gold itself is the color of spirituality, enlightenment, eternity, and that of coming to an epiphany as well, a spiritual awakening. Um, and it actually takes Tom quite a bit longer to transition to this point. Izzy, or Isabel, she is the one who is more spiritual, and she she moves into the spiritual realm much faster than Tom does, and you see this. And Thomas from biblical stories is the doubter, so I think a lot of us can uh, admit that we've all doubted. I myself have been a doubter. You know, I can't really equivocate myself with any of the biblical giants, but if I were to say I was like any of them, I might have to say Paul, because he's given me kind of a thorn in my side. My creator has, and that would be right now the whole loneliness thing that I'm having to be tested with, but it's only temporary, I feel. Um, Success comes first, and then love comes later. I'm more about getting myself situated, and this film actually reassured me that it will come. I just have to be myself and be patient. And patience is not one of my virtues, because I'm a little bit impulsive at times. I'm actually less impulsive than I have been. I'm young and I'm a late bloomer. Um, but on my way, and I'm growing and I'm maturing and I'm figuring out what my niche is in life. And I think that I'll be able to help quite a few people because I've been able to make a lot of people smile and feel better about themselves. And this film actually brought a lot of things into focus for me, and I just feel that it is a very enlightening film, and that it is just a resplendent movie, gorgeous in every way, shape, and form, and it is art de l'art, as the French would say, or art for art's sake. I mean, art pour l'art. Excuse me, art pour l'art. I want to get my French right here. Um, and it is that it really is a absolutely incredible, phenomenal piece of art, and Hugh Jackman is just unbelievably good in this film, and his emotion is so very raw, and I could really identify with this, particularly when my mother passed away. I went through Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, and the first one that I had quite a bit was anger. Actually, I was enraged. I don't get enraged by very many things, that I was really ticked off. And I said a few things that were not very pretty. I cursed, and I'm really not the type to curse too much. But when I do, if I'm really angry, I use the F word a lot. And it's really not part of my personality as a lady, because it really isn't who I am in my matrix of my soul. That is not me. That is the other me that I don't really like. That's the dark place I don't really like to go down. And that really showed that part of my personality. I think Tom's personality in that, when I get angry, I thought, yeah, that's exactly where I was when my mom passed, when she died, and I really didn't get a chance to say goodbye. I did get a sense of closure at her funeral, but I didn't get to say goodbye when she passed, and I always felt guilty. I thought maybe there should have been more, and maybe I should have said something when I realized that something was wrong, and the people in the hospital weren't telling me anything, but I already knew that was, there wasn't really anything that I could have done, but I always felt kind of guilty about that. I've forgiven myself, and it was about forgiving oneself, surrender and sacrifice, and he becomes a kind of a savior, a messianic figure, and there's a lot of Mayan mythology on this, and their kingdom of the dead, and the mythology that goes behind that. Uh, Ixubal, I believe is called. I can't remember what it's called right off the top of my head. I'm sorry, I'm not getting it right, but I should know this because Greg Braden talks quite a bit about this in depth. And if you really are into Mayan mythology, you'll really appreciate the detail that was paid, and I think it's all very accurate. And Xibalba, sorry, it was called Xibalba. That was the realm of the dead, and the great father of all creation. The myth says the great father of all creation. He died to create the earth, and the tree of life sprouted from his mouth, and all that was left was his head, and it gave birth to the sky and all other things that are around it. But you notice there's that self-sacrifice, the ultimate altruism, the giving of one's life. Death in itself is the ultimate state of awe, as Isabel said. I'm like, oh, that is just absolutely cool. I know it sounds kind of morbid, but to me, I thought, this is true. And I heard this, and it keeps coming back to me. This was a funeral that I attended, and it was the best funeral I've ever been to. I know it sounds kind of strange, but I'm not a morbid person. I'm the first and foremost optimist. I'm always wearing my rose-colored glasses, and I'm a dreamer. But anyway, this woman, she was related to my mother's side of the family, my aunt, and she said death is a transition. We are just going through becoming what we're meant to become on this planet, but this planet is not all there is. And I thought there's so much truth to that. And I know here on the Earth, we don't really understand intangible objects or just the spirit or the realm of the unknown, and that's what really scares us. And this film really struck that chord with me because for the longest time, and I know this probably makes no sense, but I have a fear of death. I am absolutely scared of it. I am petrified. Especially dying alone. And dying alone is the one thing, and I really don't want to think about it. But it's one thing that scares me even more than nuclear holocaust. Um, but it's really a frightening scenario, and Tom goes through this, and you see him in his journey and his ultimate nirvana, basically, and realizing what he has to do in order to become one, basically, with Isabel. And it just transcends all other films I've seen, and it's even better than Hereafter or What Dreams May Come. I think it just has a better kind of sense of meaning, and it's really beautiful, beautiful movie. And I know a lot of people really didn't like it because they didn't understand what was going on, but it's very symbolic in nature, altruistic. Um, with Isabel's saying, "I'm not afraid anymore, Tommy," and she was not afraid. She was brave. She accepted. She was a surrendered vessel. She knew that this was not the end of all things. She remembered Shibaba, basically, and whatever anybody's version of paradise is. Some may not really believe in that. Like, and I know this also sounds very strange coming from somebody who proclaims herself as Christian. I don't really like using the word Christian. I would consider myself more spiritual or metaphysicist. Budding philosopher. Let me just put that. Budding philosopher. I think that sounds a little bit better and less descriptive, and I don't get pigeonholed so much, or people don't run away when I say certain things to them, and I don't shove my beliefs down other people's throats just because I don't believe in that. I respect other people because human beings are human beings, but the whole fact of the matter is that she was willing to just let go, and that's the whole point. And how many of us are willing to actually go through that? How many of us are just willing to surrender? That's the hardest thing, I think. Just letting go of basically all that we know and then going into another state that we don't understand. But I have a friend who is an atheist, and I was talking to him about my mother's death, and he's a good friend of mine. We get along really well. We're both evolutionarianists and Darwinists, so yeah, we're like birds of a feather, and we're always talking about that and how it's there's always solid proof of it. But anyway, he told me one time. He asked me, "Doesn't it give you some comfort knowing that your mother is no longer?" Um, I answered him. I said, "Yes, absolutely." And he didn't say, when an atheist doesn't believe that there's anything beyond death, which I find debatable. But anyway, I still think that it's still comforting because when this life is said and done, you don't have to worry about living up to anybody's expectations or following a set of rules, because there are no rules. You don't have to even consider any of that because basically you're going back to the earth. You're returning from that whence you came. And I think that in and of itself is very comforting, and it just gives me a sense of peace. And I'm not an atheist, but I can see why they think this way, and I respect it. And I don't see any argument with it, even though I don't really believe that's what happens when you pass. But none of us really know. That's the whole point. None of us really No. Um, but I think now that I've seen this film and I understand more about what I think is going to happen, I'm a little less frightened. Yeah, I'm still kind of scared of the prospect of eventually dying. But it's much less than it used to be. I'm gonna have a little confessional here. When I was 28. Yeah, when I was 20, it was not long after my mother died. A lot of things happened right after my mother passed. We had a flood. The lower part of our house was damaged. We had to get rid of all the teak wood tile and the lower level of our home, and we had to get rid of a couple of bookshelves because they were made out of what is it, cork? I can't remember. Plywood. They were made out of plywood, and they had to be trashed just because they were ruined, completely gone. So we we put tile on the floors, and then I started having a lot of sharp pains in my abdomen, and I had never had any issue with cramping or anything. I mean, the only thing that happens to me is I get a little bit irritable and a little bloated, but nothing really major. And I had been having some problems. I had diarrhea and all that. Sorry. I mean, I trust you guys. You're my friends. So I just had a lot of trouble. And I mean, my abdomen, it hurt so bad. And I really seriously thought I was going to die. And at first I was so scared, and I didn't know. I thought that my life was ending. I thought I could see my life flash before my eyes. But I came to a sense of peace, and I thought, I think I might get emotional, but I thought, if this is the end of everything, I'm gonna get to see Mom again, and I'll get to see my half brothers whom I never met, and all the animals I ever loved. And sorry, and it won't be bad because I won't be alone. Because what I've heard from NDEs are people see members of their family that they've known and loved, and you do not die alone. So that gave me a sense of comfort and peace and tranquility that passed all understanding. I had a cyst on my ovary. That's what happened. I had to go to the local hospital, which I will never do again, except for employment probabilities. But I went inside of our local hospital and I waited for 4 or 5 hours. And I went in and they did a scan and they gave me a pill and they had me drink contrast and they put me through a CAT scan and they said, "Oh, you had an ovarian cyst." I thought, yeah, well, you could have told me that beforehand. I thought I was gonna freaking die. So, yeah, that was really frightening, but I got through it, and Dad was with me, and God, I mean, I was utterly comforted. My next door neighbor, she was with me, and that everybody came to my aid, and it was a very touching moment for me, and I knew I wasn't going to be alone, and it just made me feel better. And now that I know what death could be like, I don't think it will be like that when I do finally shuffle off the buffalo and leave this mortal coil and go to the great spirit in the sky, as they say. But this movie really brought out a lot of those issues for me, and it just gave me a sense of placidity, and I really think that it's really a beautiful film. I give it 2 thumbs way up, 5 stars hands down. I really want to know how they did all those different angles. The camera angles are just really impressive. It's different than anything else I've ever seen other than the Ocean's films, like I said. And the gold lighting was so different, and near the end when he had his eureka and he goes through the the doors, the doors of the laboratory, it kind of resembles a cross. It's light white, and you know what white represents. White represents purity, and they do this a lot. There's a lot of symbolism. I mean, the dagger itself, where Shibab is located, it's right in the middle of that cross. The dagger looks like a cross. The cross fits inside of a circle. Cross is a male. The cross is a male symbol. Circle is a female symbol. I don't know if a lot of people thought of this. I thought, oh, I wonder if people notice that. That's interesting. But being a writer and having my background in a little bit of symbology, I know a little bit about this stuff, so I recognize a lot of the different symbolism, and it really is a beautiful movie. It's just so transcendent and very meditative, and the music is just wonderful, and if I had a chance to own it, I would, because it's just such a work of art, and I think anybody who is feeling a little bit scared about what's to come, um, or eternity, this is it. And the title itself, The Fountain, is based on the fountain of, just the fountain of youth, or just the idea of, um, eternity, the waters of life, basically. Out of its mouth, out of it will, out of, I come, what was it, New Testament, anybody who drinks of this well will thirst again, but if they come to me, they will find rivers of living water inside them. That's Jesus when he was speaking to the woman who was at the well, and she gave him a drink of water. Um, but basically, I think that was why it was based on that, and the fountain of youth, Ponce de Leon, as it happens in Spain. So there's a lot of that too. There's a little bit of a history lesson involved as well. And it just does a combination of different aspects. And the sci-fi aspect I really, really like. And then just the surreal atmosphere, and this whole um, metaphysical part that I just absolutely love in general. I'm sorry I've talked too much, but basically that's my review for The Fountain. I'm hoping to see Rush when it comes out, and I just saw the trailer again for Enough Said with James Gandolfini. I do believe he made this before he died, and it's with Jean Louise Dreyfus, and I love her. I just think she's amazing. So I'm really hoping that I can get a chance to see that when I can. So until next time, ciao. Live long and prosper.